What happens when you're in control of your finances, your career, and your well-being? There's no limit to what you can achieve. I'm your host, Jay Vickery, bringing you on a journey through finance, fitness, and finesse, a podcast about developing your 8 dimensions of wellness. If you're looking to elevate your wealth, well-being, and discover the power of balance, join me bi-weekly, Mondays and Fridays, to learn why money matters, but wellness counts.
Why would the lion teach his prey on how to get away? If they taught everybody everything that I know now and what you're learning, etc., there won't be any employees to run the United States of America, which you just said is a business, right?
Welcome to another episode of Finance, Fitness, and Finesse, where we elevate your wealth and wellness. I'm your host, Jay Vic, and today is the first episode of Savvy Scholar Sundays, where industry experts share their insights on building wealth, managing stress, and living a balanced life. Our guest today is Darion Wiggs, a 27-year-old entrepreneur who took a bold leap out of the rat race and built a 6-figure business in just 7 months. Darion is a double alumni of the University of Illinois, and he is the founder of Wiggs CPA Tax and Accounting, a firm offering accounting services and personal consultations to small business owners. Darion's passion for helping small businesses grow is matched only by his commitment to expanding financial literacy in our society. His outreach efforts empower individuals in underserved communities to create better lives for themselves through financial education and support. Join me as we dive into Darion's incredible journey, exploring his insights on the tax game, and learn how he's making a difference by promoting financial literacy and helping others succeed. Darion, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to see you. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. It's like, yeah, definitely. I know you mentioned this a while ago, so I'm excited.
Whew, it's been a journey trying to get this started. I mean, I'm that person that I like to get things started pretty quickly. So, I mean, even when I was like, oh, I'm going to train for my marathon, I was like, yep, I'm going to train in 6 months and get this done.
Yeah.
And I did. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to launch a podcast in 6 months too. And I totally underestimated the creative space and everything. I'm a finesser for sure to find experiences that align with what I want.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with finessing.
What is your first money memory?
My first money memory is probably when I was a kid. Obviously, I loved candy, right? It was a flea market outside of the project that we lived in, right? So every Saturday, there was a lot of different vendors out there. And I always wanted to buy stuff, but I didn't really have my own money. So what I did was I figured out what I was good at, and I started selling that service to my family. So what that was I used to iron everybody's clothes. So I don't know if it's because they was lazy or if I did it better, but that my first money memory had to be like kindergarten or first grade. I remember sitting down on the floor with a towel and just ironing everybody's clothes. So that's my first like money memory that I could think of off the top of my head right now.
So is that like a little business you created for yourself? I mean, were you paid an allowance at least?
Yeah, don't tell the IRS. I'm pretty sure I made like at least $30 over the 2-year period. But yeah, it was something that kind of randomly, as a kid, I think that was probably where my first time like getting my own money, something I had to myself. So that's as far as I can go back. Now,
so did you ever associate work with money? Was that always the interpretation you had growing up?
Not necessarily. I don't think I thought about it that way. But as I got older, a few years after that, I think, yeah, that's probably where it leaned towards, where it's more so, hey, you got to work to earn it. Just because where I grew up at, money wasn't like a resource that, was in abundance, right? Everybody had it, right? No, it wasn't the case. It was more so you want your own money, you got to go out there and get it, right? So I remember ironing clothes. And in the 5th grade, I was shoveling snow when I lived in Minnesota. And that I was a baller there. I remember making my first $80 day. And just because of who I am, I remember going to the store and buying potato chips for the entire class. It's one of those big bags with like $1. And I would go to class the next day and drop a bag off at like 10 different tables, and I was up. So I've always been in the habit of, and now it kind of aligns with what I do now, is kind of, working for the money, but also just being creative with different ways to kind of go out there and make some money.
I like that you gave back to your community at such a young age.
Yeah. I mean, Michelle Obama probably would disagree because it wasn't a healthy snack, but at the time, I could get away with it. I'm still in love with those Cheeto Puffs to this day.
So it
hmm
sounds like as a kid you had a pretty decent communication style. I mean, how would you describe your character as a kid, a teenager? Were you assertive or more laid back?
Extremely laid back. Extremely laid back for me just because of one of the environments I grew up in and in the circumstances. Unique thing about me is that all the way up to second grade, I kind of lived in the same area. But from second grade all the way up to seventh grade, I think I went to about, I'm just going to say about 6 to 10 schools. I went to two schools every school year: second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade. So in terms of my communication skills with people in general, kind of on the lower side, just because I was a new kid on the block, a new student in every school. So I was very reserved in a sense. I know I'm like talkative around people I know in my family and friends, but as far as the general public, no, everything was always new to me. So I kind of stayed to myself at times.
So as an accountant that you eventually grew up to be, and especially a business owner, I know that communication is very important, as I'm sure you can attest to. So
hmm
moving from school to school, was that damaging or uplifting for your communication style? Just because, hopping from place to place, it can be really hard on a kid growing up.
As I look back, it was the best thing that could have ever happened. Right? It affects everybody differently, but I think I got lucky in a sense where one, as a kid, it didn't feel like a bad thing because I thought it was normal. I didn't realize that going to two schools a year or going to 11 schools before I even started college wasn't normal, right? Until I was doing a scholarship essay. It was like, what have you done or what struggles have you had to overcome? And I was like, I don't know. Everybody I'm with is in the same situation. We all poor, right? So I started asking around, like, yeah, how many schools you went to? And he's like, two. How many schools you went to? Three. How many schools you went to? Four. And I started counting. I was like, bro, I've been to 11. So it felt normal for me. So it didn't feel bad. And I've been away more than that by now when I look back. But to answer your question, it definitely helped with communication skills. So I think one thing, not only just moving around, but just being a business owner and an adult in this world, is it gave me those communication skills to help me be adaptable to literally in this situation. So I got so used to being a new kid that now you can put me in a room with strangers, right? People that don't even look like me, right? People that don't talk like me, not from where I'm from, and I can be able to communicate with them and pretty much meet them where they are. So I think having those diverse experiences, living in South suburbs of Chicago, living in Indiana, living in Minnesota, and just constantly moving every single year, I think that's put me in the best position possible now because I'm confident to speak with anybody. And I understand at the end of the day, like how to relate to people. And as a business owner, entrepreneur in general, at some point, your communication skills have to be extremely good in order for you to not only just sell your business, but most importantly, to sell yourself. So that's where it helped out a ton.
Yes, that's so important. And I mean, even with that, communicating with people, it sounds like the adaptability that you were able to build from those experiences allows you to be adaptable to different types of people and different types of businesses that you work with as well. One other stigma that I know in the financial world is that, oh, to be good at finances, money, accounting, you have to love or be really good at math. So in high school, did you love math? I mean, what drove you to the University of Illinois and taking on accounting? Because that is, quote unquote, a pretty intimidating major, at least with a lot of the peers that I've interacted with, are pretty scared of the CPA certification and that licensing exam. So what led you from high school all the way to U of I?
Well, that answer your question about math is I used to be extremely good at math. I think I was probably the best in 99%. I'm gonna say 98. I'm not like that smart, but in terms of math, multiplication, the simple basic stuff back in the day, I was pretty good. But as I got older and started going to, University of Illinois and taking calculus and all this fancy math, I was like, yeah, nah, I'm not as good as I thought, right? But when I thought about it, and when you think about accounting, you do think about a lot of math. But to be honest, it's more so being able to think about things logically and from a mathematical perspective, right? So right now, yes, I'm an accountant, I do taxes, I do bookkeeping, etc. But it's all basic math that I feel like anybody can do, right? And especially with technology now, you got a calculator, you got Excel, you pretty much in the clear, right? If you know math and you're very good at math, it makes it a lot easier because I can think really quickly and on my toes and do certain estimates that other people can't do right away. But I don't necessarily feel like that's a barrier for entry. It shouldn't be a barrier to entry, but I could definitely see why it would scare some people away. To answer your question about the U of I ended up at U of I strictly because the accounting program was number 2 in the nation. So I was like, you know what? Let me at least, give it a shot, see how it is. I'm good at math. I want to learn about money, etc. So I gave it a shot, but definitely math. I was good growing up. It just got too complicated at U of I to the point where I'm like, I'm glad I'm not an engineer, but for accounting, you just need to know the basics.
Gotcha. And you got 2 degrees from U of I, correct?
Yep. Bachelor's and then a master's degree in accountancy with a concentration in real estate. So, yep, two.
Awesome. Have you used that real estate concentration at all, or do you plan to?
Yeah, I'm in a process of it. I think I want to eventually get into investing in real estate. So I've only had my business now for about 18 months now. So, I'm still kind of, testing the waters before I take on additional projects. But I feel like real estate is the way to go at some point. So at some point, I plan on using those classes that I took and that experience to, leverage it and apply it towards me. And it also helps with my clients because I can help them analyze properties and data and just help them dive a little bit deeper into, buying real estate from a different lens. So I do plan on using it. And then it helps out too, because I work with a lot of realtors and real estate investors. So it just helps me look at things from a different lens.
I know you're 27 and you've had your business for about a year and a half. What was it like to take that step to open up a business at such a young age and really take that on? Because that's another huge intimidation factor that many face that stops them from actually pursuing their dreams and being stuck in the rat race of the W-2 9 to 5 job for years on end.
Being an entrepreneur and starting my business, I make it very clear, was never part of the plan. Never, not a day in my life that I ever thought I would be in a position I am in today. But, with COVID and with the opportunity to study abroad and finally, for the first time in my life, to have a moment to sit back and to be out of the rat race, right? When I studied abroad in Barcelona, I wasn't thinking about money. I wasn't thinking about time. I wasn't in the US where it's work, 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 bye, bye, bye. Like I wasn't in that environment. So during that time, that was the first time in my life where I got to figure out what Darion wanted to do. And at that time, I think I had just turned 21. I realized that I didn't want to be an accountant. I didn't want to be in corporate America, right? I was like, okay, if you want to be in corporate America, what do you want to do? So I realized that I wanted to teach. Felt like because of my background, my experiences, and just who I am in general, I was in a great position to get back to my community and be able to have an immediate impact. So I was going to be a teacher. I was going to do Teach for America, which basically allows you to do 2 years. Doesn't matter what your background is, what you studied in school, but you can do 2 years of teaching in underrepresented communities because I thought that's what I wanted to do, right? Fast forward, I was too deep into accounting, too deep into my CPA studies. So I was like, I got this far. I already got a full ride to college to study accounting. Let me finish it, right? So started off in corporate America and everything just kind of came back to me instantly a few months in. And I realized that just wasn't a route I wanted to take, right? Not only I wasn't living check to check because I don't believe in buying fancy stuff. I lived in a very small apartment, but for the amount of hours I was working on somebody else's dream compared to the amount of money I was making, it didn't align with one, my core values, two, it just didn't align with my long-term goals for the type of man I want to be for my family in the future. So to answer your question, it was very scary. And even when I left corporate America, I believe at 24, I didn't know what I was going to do next. But I got the opportunity. I got some decent mentors, and I was able to kind of get my foot into the tax game at Badu Tax Services. Shout out to them, just to learn about taxes, right? And then from there, I realized that that was going to be my ticket out in a sense of it gave me the opportunity to one, be working on my own, right? Be a full-time entrepreneur, but then two, it gave me the opportunity to teach, which is ultimately what I want to do. So it was very scary at the time, but I can tell you now at 27, now that I've been doing it for, you could say, a year and a half, 2 years, it was probably the best decision I ever made in my life so far, just because I feel like being in control of your time, if you're a go-getter and being able to go out there and, actually get what you want on your own clock, on your own schedule, under your own means, it's a beautiful thing. So very scary. I can see why it scares a lot of people, but one of the best decisions I ever made. Not for everybody by all means, right? But for me, I think with my experiences throughout life and just how all the cards kind of fell in my hand, I think it was the best decision for me.
I can totally relate in regards to that. I'm currently finishing out grad school in pursuit of a PhD to eventually open up my financial therapy practice. And although I have a plan, as with anything in life, that nothing goes in a straight line. I want to ask you, is it guts or how do you ground yourself when, you're having those moments of overwhelm trying to figure out, oh my gosh, I have to put all these things together for my business and there's all these different requirements. Because on this podcast, one of the most important things to embrace is how our money, or at least our pursuit of our careers, impacts the rest of our life. And so it's very important to stay emotionally regulated in times of distress.
I think the biggest thing is, and I practice it every single day of my life, is self-discipline. And I say self-discipline because when you do become an entrepreneur, and especially if you're starting to make money too, it is easy to start to lose everything like very quickly, right? So for me, I think self-discipline and being true to myself in terms of being very intentional, figuring out my purpose and my goals, and to make sure that all my actions, everything I do on a daily basis aligns with it, right? So for me, I had to be very disciplined, but it helped because I enjoy what I do, right? I think that's the biggest thing about entrepreneurship or starting a business or even choosing a career, right? And life in general is just finding something that you sincerely enjoy doing. So because I enjoy doing what I do, it makes it a lot easier to kind of get up to tackle some of these projects and assignments that I create for myself because it sounds like you're a learner, sounds like you love school. So the way I look at running a business is it's a group project in a sense where you get to, well, you in charge, right? You know the end goal. The end goal is personal, is your goal, right? And then now you are the one who creates the milestones, the steps, the team around it, etc. So for me, it's just a real big project that I'm working on, and I really enjoy it because now that I'm a couple months in, I actually get to see the results, and that just gives extra motivations to it, right? And when my business growing as fast as it's growing, I met my goals that I had for myself in 5 years in 6, 7 months. So because of that, right, it added extra fire to the field, and I enjoy what I'm doing. So it helps out a lot. So self-discipline and just being motivated and focused and taking care of yourself throughout the process. I think that's been the biggest thing to help me overcome some of those rougher days because it's all not easy every single day, obviously, right? But it all aligns with the big picture and my long-term goals. So I have no complaints.
Absolutely. And most importantly, finding something that you enjoy. You said how you didn't want to do accounting, but you found a way to spin it in your favor of what you really envisioned for the life that you want to create and the impact that you want to make on the world. I started out as a dietetics major, interested in helping people with eating disorders, but then I was learning about the chemistry of broccoli and I was like, this is not what I want to do. I want to work with people. So after COVID, I switched over to psychology, then went into some social work degrees, and then continued down the therapy track. But for me, I was just like, okay, I know I want to work with people, but there has to be something more to just working with trauma, depression, anxiety, relational issues. And it was after my time working in banking that I realized how much financial trauma and challenges a lot of people are facing of all different ages. I mean, I talked to somebody born in 1925 all the way up to 2005. And over that span, there was several just generations of people who had no idea what was going on with their money and just calling in so stressed. I worked on the customer service team. And that's what made me realize, okay, this is how I can take my degree that I'm not really sure what I totally wanted to do with it, but I found a niche that I was interested in and I decided to take off with it. So it's very important to anybody listening that if you're a student or you're anybody who just wants to make that life change and you have something that you're interested in, but you don't want to waste that very expensive college degree, that you lean on your support system to maybe brainstorm some different things. I have a journal. I call it the Book of Possibilities. And I just keep it around with me and I just write down random thoughts that I have. I mean, we all have them throughout the day, just different ideas of things that we want to pursue. And I've noticed after a while, you start to develop a pattern. It's tracking your thought sequences. And anybody can do it. It's a great way to enhance your thought generation.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to add on to that whole keeping a journal and keeping track of everything. I do that too. I'm one of those people. I have 1,000 ideas at all times, right? But sometimes we overwhelm ourselves with so many things, which is why it's important to be very strategic about what to do. And the whole thing about me not wanting to do accounting, I didn't want to work in corporate America as an auditor or as an accountant in that environment. So before I even left to do my own thing, I was figuring out, okay, how can I use this accounting degree to help with CPS schools, or help with the South Suburb schools as a controller, to help with the budgets, or teach econ. And for the young listeners listening to as well, yeah, I'm getting old if I say for the young listeners, but no, I'm just playing. But the way it works is like, it's okay if you pick the wrong degree. The crazy part about college in general is that at 18, we're supposed to pick a degree, a major, career path that we're going to do for the rest of our lives. And to be honest, at 18, I don't even think I was thinking clearly in terms of, I wasn't who I am today. So it's perfectly fine to pivot. Just keep an open mind and just know that you have plenty of options. So I just wanted to add that to that part. But
yeah, thank you so much for that. Moving forward, can you tell us a little bit about your business and the services that you provide?
As far as Wiggs CPA Tax and Accounting, we are a business that's been around now for almost a year and a half, and we pretty much specialize in providing not only just educational resources, but we work with small business owners and at essentially the ones who provide a service to our community, right? So instead of just prepping taxes during tax season, we realize that if you really want to strategically reduce your tax bill, then you need to be thinking about taxes throughout the year, because that's what the wealthy people do at the end of the year, right? They're not waiting until March, April and be like, I owe $20,000, or in some cases, $100,000. How can I get my bill down? No, it doesn't work like that, right? So we've realized that in order to reduce your bills, not only do you need to join a winning team by becoming an entrepreneur or investor, but you strategically need to have a team like myself that does the bookkeeping, right? That does the payroll, that does the tax prep, but most importantly, we sit down with small business owners and we help them proactively plan for taxes throughout the year on a quarterly basis or even monthly. But we pretty much work with small business owners and we're just their right hand person. And we provide all of the financial aspects to their business so they don't have to stress about the financial part, but they can just focus on scaling and growing their business and doing what they actually enjoy doing, you know?
I'm definitely wondering what your perception of the tax game is, because it appears to me at least that the tax system, I mean, it is all a game. And so even to go along with what you said of having the right people on your team, the wealthy, they not only have the right resources, connections to be able to finesse the tax game in their favor, but we live in a world of endless information. What is an actual credible resource?
Right now, we live in a place where it used to be a couple years ago where financial literacy wasn't talked about at all, right? It was kind of, something that was said on the low, or it wasn't as broadcast as it is today. Nowadays, you go to any social media platform, it is a million people talking about different tax write-offs, writing the kids, buying the cars. Like it's an abundance of information, but how do we figure out what's a credible source? So I think the biggest things to look at, first thing is we need to know that there's two different types of individuals within this space, right? You got the tax preparers. Tax preparers are the folks at TurboTax, H&R Black, Liberty Tax, or, your family friend who does taxes. That's the person that at the end of the year, you get your W-2s, you give them their W-2s and they prep your taxes. At the end of the day, that's like a data entry job. They're not doing any strategy, any, brainstorming for future plans. They're just literally prepping your taxes. And then there's a tax strategist. That's more so where I'm at. I'm a licensed certified public accountant, meaning I got my master's degree. I got over 150 credit hours. I got Big Four accounting experience. Like you hear the word CPA or EA, which is enrolled agent, which is someone who took a certificate so that they can act on your behalf with IRS. Those are the more people, not saying people who don't have those certificates aren't a credible source, but if you want to easily filter out, who's out here just saying stuff and who actually invested time and energy in learning the tax game, I would look for those letters next to someone named first. Now, what makes my business stand out is because my business isn't trying to be the TurboTax of the world, H&R Block of the world. I pride on being a small business. Like we do taxes during tax season for a small group of individuals, but my goal is to essentially work with only 10 to 15 business owners, or maybe 15 to 20, because what happens is you get in a service-based business or you start providing tax services and you grow so fast and so quickly that the quality of service kind of decreases. So what happens is you'll work with a CPA firm. You'll start off working with a Darion 6, 7, 8 years in, or maybe 2, 3 years in. You're working with somebody all the way in India and the quality of service isn't the same. So my goal is, because I actually enjoy teaching, I actually enjoy working with people hands-on. I want to really just niche down and work with a small group of people that I can be 100% present for and hold their hands throughout the entire process. So you can go to a bigger tax firm to get that tax prep, but in terms of the quality of service, the communication, professionalism, there's a reason why I'm 18 months in. I have 118 five-star reviews, is because I really pride on, especially in this industry, right? I'm dealing with social security numbers, your financial information, et cetera, right? So I really treat people with care, and I work with a lot of friends, of family friends, et cetera, and I treat them as my own. So I guess that's what helps me stand out, is because one, we don't plan on being the largest firm in the world, but we do plan on providing the best quality of service in the world and working with a small group of people, which business owners value that, right? A lot of people, even in schools, right? There's a reason why people go to smaller schools versus big schools, because at the end of the day, you don't want to feel like a number, right? You want to feel like, hey, the person that's teaching me or working with me actually cares. And that's the environment we want to create for our clients.
Prioritizing the relational component of it is so important because it also fosters trust and it'll ignite the productivity between both businesses. A big priority that I place on this podcast is destigmatizing the intimidation behind the financial language that can be oh so scary. Thank you for also defining the different types of credentials that are very important to look out for if you are seeking tax advice. So what does audited mean?
Audit, auditor, et cetera. So those, I guess the best way to put it, to break it down, if you're getting audited, that means the IRS, in a sense, let's say you file a tax return and it raises a couple of red flags, right? Audit is when the IRS will, and their team basically, when send somebody there to dive a little bit deeper into your financials. Like, okay, Jay, you said you got a business, you made $30,000, but your meals is 55,000, your travel expenses 120,000, and now you got a private jet. As we all know, by the sounds of it, that's a huge red flag. But when you get audited, they're saying, hey, show me the proof. So now you need to show them the receipts. You need to show them the financial statements. You need to pretty much essentially show them the paper trail. And you also need to be able to prove to them that those expenses were ordinary and necessary to operate your business. See, a lot of new business owners and business owners in general, they fail to keep up with that part, because you can take tax write-offs, right? You could take deductions to lower your taxable income, but people forget that, one, you need to keep receipts for at least 3 years. Two, you need to make sure that your business and your personal finances are separate. And three, you need to have financial statements to pretty much, that's your profit and loss statements showing your income and expenses. You need to have those statements to even prove that, hey, yeah, I spent this money on this expense, but you need to have that proof. And a lot of people forget about that. And because of that, when you get audited, it's a really scary process for a lot of business owners, because it's like, wow, I'm about to lose this audit. And the reason why is because they don't have the support, which is why when we work with business owners, we don't just prep the taxes. We're like, hey, we're going to do the bookkeeping, the payroll, and the whole everything. So if you ever were to get audited, it's a simple, hey, we already got the receipts. We already got the financial statements. We already got everything here. Get off our back, basically, right? So being audited is a term, and then we're talking about taxes, right? It's basically when the IRS comes there and they get a little nosy and look deeper into your situation. There's different type of audits, like in corporate America, right, where they pretty much want to make sure that, confirm that Chase says that the cash reserves and the assets they have are valued at what they are, so that investors aren't misled when they're ready to buy a share or a stock in Apple or Chase or something like that. So there's different type of audit. Scary process, but if you got that paper trail documentation, it's a breeze.
Well, and that's understandable of how it could be a breeze if you're organized, but that also sounds like very hard to organize. So I can understand why small business owners would want to utilize that service that you provide of helping them put that stuff together in case if an auditing situation does happen. In regards to personal finance, what's your recommendation of how an individual can go about making sure that they're organized in regards to receipts and all of that stuff? Because I'm pretty sure most people don't even keep their receipts. I see too many receipts on the ground. So what's the best way to stay organized as an individual, and then also how to stay organized as a business owner?
I would say the best thing to do as an individual is just get in the habit of just using your credit cards, so like the same card for expenses. Like me, I already know what's today, Friday. I'm using the same exact Chase card for the entire weekend. So that's how I'm keeping track of my expenses, right? At the personal level, I don't need to keep receipts, but having that bank statement and having, a paper trail knowing where your money is going, that helps out, right? Now, for my business owners, the first thing I recommend, right, especially if you have an LLC. I know LLC is a hot topic all over the place, but people forget that it means limited liability company. That's what LLC stands for. Limited liability company. And the reason why you form an LLC is to protect your assets. But there's also this thing called piercing the corporate veil, where is that if you commingle your funds, meaning you got one bank account for business and personal, if you were to get sued, there's no way for them to figure out what's your personal assets and what's your business assets. So now all your assets are at risk, where it's no point in having an LLC if you're going to do that, right? So step one is to, if you have a business in an LLC set up, or even if you don't have an LLC set up, or you have a business, is to have a separate account for personal expenses and a separate account for business expense. That case, no matter what, you got the bank statements to support all of your business transactions, because you only use that credit card, you only use that checking account for business related expenses. The rule of thumb is to keep receipts for at least 3 years. Obviously, it's kind of hard to always keep a receipt, but nowadays in this day and age, you can have it emailed to yourself, right? You can have it texted to yourself. And most importantly, let's say you go out to eat, me and Jay grab some food, and at the end of the dinner, I would just take the receipt, I would write on it, podcast conversation, and I would take a picture of it and email it to myself, or save it in a folder within my phone. So that case, I don't need to have the physical copy. I have a digital copy. So it's more so for business owners to protect their finances and be more organized, and just to get in the habit of doing those things early on in your business, so that you can build the foundation. So as you do grow to that 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures, you already got those habits early on. But that's the biggest thing, is just separating business and personal finances and assets. And then that's the best way to kind of keep a paper trail, so you can keep track of your expenses, not only for an audit, but most importantly, so you can track the actual performance of your business, right? A lot of time business owners make money, but they don't keep track of their expenses. So when you look up, oh, all my money's gone, well, you spent it. And then they don't keep track of what they spent the money on, so they can't even fix the mistake, right? So a lot of people kind of breeze over bookkeeping, but having bookkeeping systems, or even using an Excel file early on in your business, that's what I did. I'm an accountant, and the first thing I did was I had an Excel file. If you just have something so you can keep track of your expenses, that's going to help you out in the long run.
Yes. Organization, organization, organization. And
Amen.
also not being afraid to ask for help. I mean, that goes beyond just the mental health space that, we all know that I'm a specialist in, but in your business, in your personal life, don't be afraid to outsource the things that you need help with. I'm also aware, Darion, that the importance of setting aside income for estimated taxes.
That's super important for business owners, mostly because when you're a W-2 employee, right, you make money, the IRS takes money, and then you get to spend what's left, right? So if you make 6 figures, let's say you make $100,000, sounds good, but we all know when you get that money at the end of the year, you're only making about 60 something, right? And the reason why I say that is because as a W-2 employee, money is automatically taken out of your check, which is a beautiful thing. But as a business owner, it doesn't work like that, right? We're responsible for paying our own taxes. So estimated taxes is super important, because as a business owner, you're required to pay tax payments on a quarterly basis. But the beautiful thing about that is, let's say you make $100,000, you don't pay taxes on 100,000. You pay taxes on what's left after your ordinary and necessary expenses to operate your business. So if you make $100,000, you got $60,000 in expenses. Guess what? You only pay taxes on 40K, which is good because it reduces your taxable income and your tax bill compared to somebody who gets their money via W-2. But to answer your question, estimated taxes are pretty much a payment that we're required to make quarterly to the IRS and at the state level, right? Because as a business owner, you got to pay state taxes, federal taxes, and Social Security and Medicare, right? So it can add up relatively quickly. So instead of waiting until April to pay one fat tax bill, we're basically required to pay taxes April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, and at the end of the year to avoid penalties, but to also to reduce that tax bill. Most importantly, the way I simplify it is that you're paying taxes when you actually have the money, right? Versus spending all the money and then tax time come around, you need to show income. Now you got a fat tax bill. So estimated tax is super important. It's pretty much, I recommend just saving 20-25% of every dollar you make, putting it into a separate tax account. So when it is time to make those estimated tax payments, you already been building that nest egg. And as your business grows and you have to show more income, you've been saving for taxes the whole time. So it makes it a lot easier to process and pay those bills versus those who don't save for taxes at all, because it's not going anywhere at the end of the day.
Yes, and that's valuable information, especially for anyone who is just starting their business or thinking about starting a business. I'm sure that that's a mistake, and a very scary mistake that people make, reaching those quarterly reports or quarterly payments you need to make, and then all of a sudden the money's not there. I'm sure that would be a very stressful thing. So
Oh yeah.
definitely make sure that you're paying attention to those estimated taxes that you need to pay. One thing that really made me interested in Darion's content, and it's very important to also check out his Instagram. He gives a ton of information about how our tax system works and what it means to be a business owner. Darion, could you tell us a little bit about what the tax code means in regards to how it favors entrepreneurs versus just W-2 employees?
I guess the biggest way I put it is that, and nothing wrong with being a W-2 employee, right? But in terms of answering the question, like, how does it favor? Well, at the end of the day, in order to win in taxes, you need to be in on the winning team, right? The tax code was not created for W-2 employees. At the end of the day, it was created for business owners and investors. There's a reason why the wealthiest people all got real estate. They all got like some type of foot in the door in a different partnership or a business. That's because they understand that in order to win on taxes, you need to be on a winning team, which means you need to be an entrepreneur or a real estate investor or investor in general. Not saying quit your job, but you need to figure out a way to have that as part of your tax return. Because when you are an entrepreneur or a real estate investor, now you're in control of your tax bill. Like I said, you can make $100,000 as W-2 employee, but we all know that's not your take home money, right? You're going to pay probably 30% of your income in taxes. But I know business owners making $100,000, but you don't pay taxes on 100K, you pay taxes on what's left after all your expenses. And a lot of times when you become a business owner, I'm not one of those people, full disclosure, to say, oh, go buy a car, go buy this, go buy that, just for the write-off. I'm one of those people that's saying a lot of times when you become a business owner, a lot of your day-to-day expenses already automatically become deductible, right? See, if you work in a W-2 job, you can't write off that laptop, you can't write off that software, you can't write off your business mileage, your phone bill, internet. But now that you're a business owner, a lot of those expenses automatically become deductible. I bought this laptop, right, for my business, the Zoom subscription for my business, right? I bought a phone for my business, my internet. I live at home. I have a home office, so a portion of my rent now becomes deductible. Stuff that I was going to pay for anyway, but because I'm a business owner, those things are deductible on my tax return. So I can make the same 100K as you can in corporate America, but my tax bill will be significantly lower just because the tax code was made to essentially incentivize you to keep reinvesting back into yourself, your business, etc. And you basically get resulted in a lower tax bill than the rest of society.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure if anyone else has heard of this, but America is a business. I've heard from some of the international students I've interacted with that America's not a country, but a business. So it's interesting how the systems that we put in place are meant to cater towards entrepreneurs and businesses, yet we're not taught that in schools. I mean, it's really ironic how I've even noticed this pattern of, there's like the business school at certain universities, and then there's like all these creative arts, even like in therapy. And the business kids are being taught maybe how business works and how to build a business, but there may not be a creative component that they can take their own ideas to flourish and build off of. I love my program at U of I, but there was never a program that taught me about negotiation, about private practice, about how taxes work. And so I'm wondering what your ideas are on the concept of the freedom to fail at the tax game, because that's almost why the value of education is going down in a way, because we are given all this information, but not the necessarily right information to be a successful citizen or business owner in America.
I guess my question to you is, why do you think they didn't teach you all of those things? Like, why do you think they didn't teach you about negotiation and all these taxes and financial literacy? What's your thought on that?
We're not taught financial literacy in personal finance because, well, for one, there's no one right way to take on money and to work with money. And that's why it's a game at the end of the day. So I think that we're not taught because it's hard to get a universal curriculum, but there is also this intimidation piece that is applied that you can only understand money if you come from money, or you can only work with money if you know the right people. It's a big reason why intergenerational poverty is so prevalent in several areas around the world, but especially in America. We're not being provided the right resources and time put into understanding that anybody is capable of understanding money. I mean, honestly, I think that if you know how to add, subtract, and then maybe multiply, I mean, you could even just use ChatGPT for that or your calculator. But there's going to always be a hierarchy, unfortunately. I'm a social worker, come from a great social work program at U of I, so we advocate for equity and equality, but there's always going to be a hierarchy in place because of the systems that are in place. And that includes not being taught in schools how to be a functional and successful citizen in America that is capable of creating your own business and creating your own life for yourself. Even if you don't want to be a business owner, how to just manage your money. It's not taught nationally. I mean, there's been from the recent research I've done, I believe that there's 30 states that have started to implement personal finance requirement in high schools, which is awesome. But there are some limitations in regards to the accuracy and effectiveness of it. Some classes, personal finance segment is only taught during 1 week of class out of the entire school year, just because they have to touch on the requirement. But I also believe, and you got me going on a rant now, but I also believe that if we were able to take the different things that we learn in high school and it being promoted as applicable to real life, it can also foster more engagement, because whether we like it or not, you're going to interact with money. I know it's scary. I know it's intimidating. And I mean, anybody, like whether you're blind, you're deaf, you're disabled, they're going to interact with money at some point. So it's important to be able to embrace what you can and just to diversify the information that you're receiving. I'm still learning and I'm taking advantage of my learning opportunities because I understand that the more people that I discuss money with and money strategies with, that I can be able to build and implement my own strategies.
Yep, you hit it on the head. And it's frustrating when you think about it too, how it's like they kind of skip over that part, right? Part of the American dream, let's just make it super broad. You want to buy a home, you want to buy a car, at some point you're going to use a credit card. They send us to school, you got to take out hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans, etc. There's not a single class talking about credit. There's not a single class talking about mortgage, well, real estate, right? But what I'm getting at is I went to University of Illinois, and no knock at them, beautiful school, amazing program, number 2 in the nation. I went to it, and I didn't learn about the vast majority of those things. Like even the stuff I do today, it's not tailored towards entrepreneur, because I came to the conclusion that these schools and the systems is tailored towards teaching you how to be a W-2 employee, teaching you how to be an employee, not the CEO necessarily. So for me, I came to the conclusion, and it was after this what made me quit my job too, because I came to the realization too as well. When I talked to my mentor a few years ago, I was like, why isn't the University of Illinois, why isn't schools in general teaching us about taxes and finances, etc.? And he said, bro, why would the lion teach his prey on how to get away? If they taught everybody everything that I know now and what you're learning, etc., there won't be any employees to run the United States of America, which you just said is a business, right? So the goal is, and the system is created to essentially keep, not saying it's bad, but it's to keep the vast majority of us in the system, right? Have you watched the movie Soul before? Have
I
you
have
watched the
not.
movie? Oh, they got a
Is
scene
it
in there.
wait, is it that cartoon? Like the Disney cartoon?
Yeah, it's a Disney cartoon,
Is
and
it
one
like
of the guys,
jazz?
yeah, and he kind of stepped
Yeah,
in the
okay, I've
pothole
seen
and he
it.
died.
It's
Okay, it was one.
sad. It's sad. I think
Yeah,
that's why I blocked it from my head.
yeah, there was a scene in there the second time watching it. I went to sleep the first time where there was an accountant and a finance guy in like the basement or whatever, super miserable in his head. It's like, make a trade, make a trade. But long story short, what I'm getting at is that it's very hard to wake up from it. And that's one thing as an entrepreneur, and one thing that I had to learn on my own. Like, I think completely different now. And it's not something that I learned in school necessarily. It's a combination of all of my life experiences together. And then speaking to people like you and understanding that, hey, this is a huge problem. Am I either going to watch it or am I going to do something about it? Right. That's why I admire the platform that you're creating, because we could talk about it from a different lens. But yeah, in conclusion, I just came to the point that there's no benefits for them teaching us everything we need to know about financial literacy, which is why it's important for people like you and myself to create platforms and to educate our community about it. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to change anytime too soon.
I think that our generation is what we're moving towards is a different definition of the American dream. And that is that it's not anymore go to school, get a degree, get a good job, get a wife, get a white picket fence and a dog and a baby, and you're good to go. Because even then, during those generations that have built up these systems and built up America in good and bad ways, those people are still calling in to me at the bank and saying, can you please put money in my account? I need to be able to strategize with overdraft fees just so I can make ends meet. Generational financial trauma is passed down because we are left with our parents, mentors, caregivers to solely teach us about money. But it's also a taboo topic in households. So it's definitely not going to be taught in schools because, yeah, they want to be able to groom us to follow that same system to keep fueling the employees for the businesses throughout America. And it takes those people who are willing to take a leap, but they're also taking a leap against all of that intimidation factors that are put on being able to be a business owner and the wide-eyed deer in headlights scene that you get when you're like, wait, I have to take all of this on myself. I have to do all this by myself. And it's just sad to see that there are so many students that put so much into their education and then they're just spit out into the world with no actual real skills on how to manage their money, how to manage the benefits of their job. It's just heartbreaking to me. And it's something that I want to be able to build a financially literate society that we can all thrive in,
I've had this conversation a handful of times, and it's probably the first time where I kind of feel bad in a sense where I feel like, and we're on the same page with this, so I can say it, but I feel like we put a lot of pressure on schools and the education system to do it, right? But they can only do so much, and I don't want to put 100% of the blame on them. But now that we identified as a problem, right? Now that our generation, like you're saying, seeing it all over the place on internet, social media, etc., let's stop blaming them and let's figure out how we can leverage the resources that we have. Because at the end of the day, everything we need is in the books, right? A YouTube video, like it's there. So for the folks that's listening here, and you're like, hey, you're just like us, and like you didn't necessarily get that your educational program or it wasn't talked about within your family. I want to make it very clear that almost 80, 85, if not 90% of the things I do today in my business or the stuff I know about financial literacy is because I picked up a book, not a textbook from your professor. I picked up a book. I locked in on all financial literacy books. I started doing lunch and learns, dinner and learns by myself, where I enrolled in YouTube University, where I was just watching YouTube videos, and I'm in a car, I'm in Commute University, I'm listening to financial literacy podcasts. I'm on social media. I'm looking for, like, it's so many resources out there that now, especially at this age, we're in our early 20s, mid 20s, we don't have an excuse. I mean, we have excuses, but as an adult, right, it's up to us to take a stance and to actually invest in our futures, and not just financially, but it's the mindset. That's where it all starts, right? Because they can teach you, right? You can take a financial literacy course, but what's your mindset? Like, what are your biggest takeaways? And most importantly, how are you going to apply it to your life? So the schools are at fault. That's just a system that needs to be changed. But if you're 23, 24, 25, 22, 21, and you're hearing this, like, hey, like, come on, we got to do something about it. So that's why we're here to help.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, you have the freedom to fail, but you also have the freedom to take initiative if you genuinely want change. As a therapist, I have to be a little blunt sometimes with some of my clients after working with them for a while of, okay, we have a problem here and we're actively trying to find solutions, but are you actually trying to implement them? Are you actually trying to learn from them? Because if you're not, then you're settled and you're complacent in that life.
With you being in the therapy space, I'm pretty sure you're well aware that although money isn't my main driver, I am well aware for a lot of people that money is something that can cause a lot of headaches in your life, right? A lot of people are stressed out about finances, right? So even when I work with people on tax returns or just in general, and I'm able to put an extra $5, 10, $15,000 back in their pocket or to help them save money, that makes my day because that's one less thing they have to stress about because I'm in a position to make that happen.
I cannot stress enough to please follow Darion. I have learned so much on a personal and in pursuit of my entrepreneurial journey of the tax industry and how that works. Not a lot of people are giving out that much valuable information for free. Darion, how can people find you? Where can they reach you? If there's someone who's not a business owner, don't you have like a personal finance consulting option as well? I think that's how I first got connected with you too.
Yeah, you can definitely get connected with me on Instagram at WiggsCPA.com. That's WIGGS CPA.com. I'm there. I'm on LinkedIn at Darion Wiggs. And then you can literally just Google Wiggs CPA tax and accounting. I try to host, free webinars throughout the year. I know it's a a lot of gurus out here selling, no knock to them, selling courses and books and ebooks. I'm not at that level in life right now. So my goal is just to teach and keep adding value each and every single day. So definitely feel free to follow on those platforms. I took my foot off the gas pedal with giving media and, short reels and stuff like that. But starting at the end of June, we're going to be back at it doing videos throughout the rest of the summer. So definitely tap in, and if you're ready to learn, reach out. And if you aren't a business owner, we do financial coaching in a sense where you want to get into investing, you want to get into real estate, etc. We offer those services too as well, where we treat you like the other business owners and we meet with you quarterly, or we're just on hand to answer questions about different assets that you can invest in, as well as, helping you save for college for your kids, etc. So we can be a resource to pretty much everyone. So just don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Finance, Fitness, and Finesse. A big thank you to Darion Wiggs for sharing his journey and expertise with us. Remember, financial literacy is key to building a better future. And with leaders like Darion, we're one step closer to a financially empowered society. If you enjoyed this episode, help me learn with you, and be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to elevate our wealth and wellness. I'm Jay Vick, and I'll see you on the next More Money Mondays episode. Until then, stay savvy, and if you don't know, now you know.